Hi everyone, you're welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. In this video, we shall look at the idea of a turning point and introduce a method used to determine the turning point of a given function. Now let's start with the definition of a turning point. A turning point is also known as a stationary point, and this is the point on the curve where the function changes direction, as clearly seen on the diagram. Now, considering the N-shaped curve, now at this point, the line changes direction, and this is regarded as the maximum turning point. Now, as we move towards the U-shaped curve, at this point, below, there's a change in the line changes, and so this is regarded as the minimum turning point. Now, let's take an example on how to determine the turning point of a given function. Here is an example. A curve has the equation y equal to x to the power of 3 minus 9x squared minus 48x. Find the coordinates of the turning point of the curve. Now, the turning point occurs where the y dx is equal to 0. In other words, the derivative of y with respect to x equal to 0. So this is the turning point. So at the y dx equal to 0, we can find the y dx equal to 0 is the turning point of the curve. So it means we have to differentiate y with respect to x, given the equation y equal to x to the power of 3 minus 9x squared minus 48x. Now, we can differentiate by using the general rule for differentiating power functions. So the y dx will be equal to, now to differentiate, in this case, we have to multiply the power by the coefficient and then subtract 1 from the power. So this becomes 3x squared minus, now 2 times 9 is 18, so this gives us 18x, then minus, now the x has a power of 1 times 48, and this gives us 48. Now, we're now going to equate this to 0. As already clearly written here, the y dx equal to 0. So the result has to be equal to 0. So we have 3x squared minus 18x minus 48 equal to 0. We have a quadratic equation now, and to simplify further, we have to simplify the coefficients of this equation in order to apply the quadratic formulas method. So I'm going to simplify by dividing the entire equation by 3. So let's divide by 3, which is a common factor, or the highest common factor. Now 3 goes here, and where we're left with just x squared minus 6x, then minus 16 equal to 0. So x squared minus 6x minus 16 equal to 0. So at this point, we will have to introduce the quadratic formulas method. And by applying the quadratic formulas method, here we have the formula says x equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Now, to apply this formula, first we need to know the values of a, b, c, and of course a will be the coefficient of x squared, and that's 1. B will be the coefficient of x, and that's -6. So B, the value of B will be the coefficient of x, and that's -6. And then we have C to be the constant, -16. So I'm now going to substitute these values into the quadratic formula. So we have to calculate x by writing negative in bracket, we have -6 plus or minus, and we've got the square root. B square will be -6 square minus 4 times A is 1, then times C. C is -16 over 2A, which is 2 times 1, 2 times 1. Now, negative times negative gives positive, so we're going to get a +6 plus or minus the square root of. Now, -6 squared is simply -6 times -6, and that gives us 36. Here we've got -4 times 1, which is -4, and -4 times -16 gives us a +64 over 2. Now, we can go further to simplify, where we say 6 plus or minus. Now, 36 plus 64 is equal to 100. And so the square root of 100 gives us 10. So 6 plus or minus 10 over 2. So here we're going to have x can either be 6 plus 10 over 2, or x can also be 6 minus 10 over 2. So 6 plus 10. So we have our value of x. X is 6 plus 10 over 2. And 6 plus 10 equal to 16. So 16 over 2 equal to 8. So the value of x is equal to 8. Now for the second value of x, where x equal to 6 minus 10 over 2. Now 6 minus 10 gives -4. So x equal to -4 over 2. And then x will be equal to -2. Now, having found the value of x, we will have to now find the corresponding y value, given the value of x. So we need to find the corresponding y value. Now, how do you find the corresponding y value? We have to find the corresponding value by now substituting the value of x into the original equation. So the original equation says, from the original equation, y equal to x to the power of 3 minus 9x squared minus 48x. We can actually find the value of y by replacing the value of x into the original equation. So for x equal to 8, for x equal to 8, now for x equal to 8, y will be equal to, now 8 to the power of 3 minus 9 times 8 to the power of 8 squared minus 48 times 8. Now 8 to the power of 3, 8 times 8 times 8 is going to give us 512 minus, now 8 squared is 64. 64 times 9 equal to 576 minus 48 times 8, 384. So we have 576 here. So I'm going to write this properly, 576. So 512 minus 576 minus 384 gives negative 448 as the value of y, which says y will be equal to negative 448. Now, let's find the corresponding y value given that x is equal to negative 2. So for x equal to negative 2, the corresponding y value can be found by substituting the value of x into the original equation. So y will be equal to, now x to the power of 3 will be negative 2 to the power of 3 minus 9 times negative 2 squared minus 48 times negative 2. So to further simplify this, we have to now negative 2 to the power of 3 is equal to negative 8 minus, now negative 2 squared gives us a positive 4 times negative 9 is negative 36. And then negative 48 times negative 2 gives us a positive 96. Now, if we are to say negative 8 minus 36 plus 96 gives us 52. So the value of y in this case is 52. So y is equal to 52. So finally, the values of the coordinates of the turning point can be stated as if x equal to negative 2, then y will be equal to 52. And if x is equal to 8, then y will be equal to negative 448. So these values are the coordinates of the turning points. These values are the coordinates of the turning points. So with this, we've come to the end of the video. If you find this interesting, please go ahead and subscribe, share, and give a massive like. Thank you.